How you doing? It's Sandesh. I'm going to be talking about an article on pushsquare.com. This one just makes me laugh. The article's called "Report Finds Lack of Star Wars Outlaw Sales Disturbing." How the hell is that disturbing? Anyway, I'm going to get into it now. Um, a million copies sold is generally speaking incredible news to any publisher of video games not named Square Enix. Unfortunately, that exception also applies when dealing with absolute massive IPs like Star Wars. While we don't know what Ubisoft sales expectations were for Star Wars Outlaws, I guarantee you their expectations for Star Wars Outlaws was just like completely like, what the hell you really expect that for Star Wars Outlaws, especially with Ubisoft's recent track record. Um, we'd be willing to bet it was more than a million in the first month. That's the scuttlebutt, according to Insider Gaming. Anyway, the nosy outlet tells alleged current sales figures from sources close to the game. Outlaws isn't expected to move many more units and is partially to blame for Assassin's Creed Shadow's hefty delay. Nah, the blame is not for Assassin's Creed Shadow's hefty delay. Well, what I've heard, a lot of people have said the Star Wars Outlaws game. The problem with it is it just feels like an Ubisoft game. It does not feel like a Star Wars game, unlike unlike Jedi Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor. Even though I haven't played Jedi Survivor, I've heard people say that those two games do feel like a Star Wars game. They don't. Those two games do not feel like an EA game, even though that they were made by EA. The difference is, um, Star Wars Outlaws just felt like another open world Ubisoft game, which is not a good thing. Forbes writer Paul Tassi crunched some numbers, finding that those numbers are dismal. But the thing is, you could blame that on the blame goes on Ubisoft. So the thing is, you could try blame on another Ubisoft game for that, but the fact is it's the fact that you just made it feel like another Ubisoft open world game. But that's what I heard, and in case you're wondering, I'm not gonna play Star Wars Outlaws. Um, anyway, Ubisoft games Far Cry 5 made some 310 million in a week, the Division around 330 million, without Disney breathing down the French firm's neck. If we take those million copies alone and assume the standard market price, that's just 70 million in revenue for the most crucial window in any game's commercial life, and over a month at that. Yeah, but the thing is, and also, I also find that when they said that PS5 games, and I suppose you could say Series X games as well, when they said that they're going to be $70 or £70, right? They don't seem to understand of the fact that the current of the current cost of living crisis that I mean that we're pretty much living in, not just in Europe, but also in I would say hang on, but I would also say in America as well, and also Canada. I mean, we're living in a cost of living crisis where people have to decide, am I going to be able to eat, especially if you've got a family. That's just even worse, so especially on the fact that you have to decide, um, am I going to choose between eating, putting the heating on, paying my bills, or paying for a game. And 70 dollars or pounds. I'm sorry, but that's just completely unreasonable in my opinion, and it doesn't bode well for the next generation when it comes to PS6 or whatever the next Xbox is, because the thing is, I think this is just a prediction, just my opinion. I honestly think if they can get away with, if enough people buy the PS5 Pro at the price that it is, without you buying the disc drive, without you buying the vertical stand, I reckon the PS6 on its own, no disk drive, is gonna be they're gonna try to make it to 800 or £850, and that's on its own. And the reason I think that is because I reckon they learnt something from scalpers on how scalpers like make get whatever electrical item it is, or whenever it's a game console, and then they'll like and then they'll overprice it. And I think Sony wanted a part of that action, and they wanted to be like, no, we're gonna do it. And it wouldn't surprise me if let's say you want to buy a disc drive for the PS6, then that they end up adding another £100 or 150 or another $150 on top of that. So it just doesn't bode well for the next generation. And then to be honest, I'm not going to get a PS6. I'm actually thinking about becoming a PC gamer when it comes to the next generation. But yeah, as far as when it comes to this, yeah, it's just completely Ubisoft's fault. It's just Ubisoft doing Ubisoft, and they're clearly not going to change. The only way they're going to change is if their investors rein in Ubisoft and say, okay, enough of this, because the thing is, we're losing money, and we're not getting a good enough return on our investment, and that's Ubisoft management's fault. That's a management Ubisoft's fault. They're causing it. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.